Bay Area, there's no other place like it. The experience at Castlemont was awesome.
With McMaster's, I thought I was so smart. He said, just as I leave early, so I didn't go to the graduation. But when I went to Castlemont, I was making a whole 75 cents an hour working at a doggy diner across the street. And in my spare time, sometimes we do little goofy stuff, like there was a gas station, a Richfield station, and we used to get his old tires, which he was very happy. Then we drive up the top 82nd hill and roll them down the hill. And you tell a few more stories, but I'm not going to go with that. And my wife was Pat Emmons. We've been married 45 years. So anyhow, and I know other people here in this class. So anyhow, good to be here. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Deanna K.
Most of your mouth.
Okay, my name's Deanna K. I graduated in and I'm here with my husband, Paul, and my friends. Everybody, I enjoyed the day, and thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Judy Lane, and thank you for me. And I just have one little thing I think is really interesting. I grew up in Oakland, and I moved away. However, I had horses in all growing up. And one of the things is that they were on Hagenberger Road. And so we go down to Hagenberger Road and get the horses and saddle them up. And guess what? Nimitz Freeway was being built. And it wasn't. So my father would say to me, let's go investigate how it's coming along. So we would gather up our little horses and we'd ride right down the middle of the Nimitz Freeway to check it out. And of course, there would be sand and everything would be smoothed out, but by the time we got done, it wasn't too smooth. So anyway, that is one of the things that I remember so much about living in Oakland.
Hi, I'm Jim Vanderwall. I had a great time in high school, especially with the fellow Shamrocks. We had a great group of guys, and we had a lot of fun. Anyway, that's all I have.
I'm Ryan Emke, June of '58, with my wife, Mary. And when I got an email from Rich to relate a story, I jotted a few notes down, and so I'd like to kind of read what I put down for you all now. This is a story of friendship and cars that has lasted 63 years. Dave Alexander, who's sitting here at the table, that car was a 41 Ford, I think, in high school. Dave, am I right? Plus a few others. And Denny Clark, who's also here, he had in high school, had a 50 Olds, referred to it as a fastback. And I, myself, had a 50 Olds coupe. Now, I didn't know he was going to be here today, but Dave Finkelman was in our car club in high school. And I don't remember, Dave, what type of car you had in school. Was it a Chevy or? 57 Chevy. 57 Chevy, thank you. Okay, Tom Stivers, he was a class of '59. He's not here today, but he had a 44 coupe, which was always one of my favorite cars. Anyway, we started a car club named the Alki Angels. There's a story about that. But here's our plaque. And what's that? No, I'm comfortable sitting down. I think better sitting down. Let's see. The name I think derived from thinking back in high school, the love of beer. So I think that's where the Alki came from. And we weren't angels now. And thinking the Hells Angels were pretty cool at that time. I think that's where the Angels came from. That's my best memory. But anyway, I remember when we got our plaques, we took them out to Vic Hubbard's Speed Shop. put it up on the wall, and that was a pretty big deal. Anytime you wanted to buy a part or something, you saw your plaque on the wall, and you let everybody know. After all the years, the four of us still have a love of cars. Dave Alexander now drives a Ford Ranchero that goes back in the family history. Denny Clark has a 1964 Pontiac GTO that he bought brand new, and he still has. And he actually, he went back to Pontiac, Michigan, and drove it home. Still has it. And Tom Stivers now has a 38 Ford. And myself, I have a 55 Chevy Bel Air. The four of us now belong to the P-Town Pushrods out of Pleasanton. New plaque. Oh, sorry. I went to Castlemont. What am I going to say?
More beer for you.
Okay. Like I said, we're also a member of the Good Guys. It's a national car club, like some other members are here today. We attend all the shows together pretty much at the Good Guys events at the Alameda Fairgrounds, which they have 4 a year. And you can find us out there working for the Good Guys as the host club for all 4 events. And so come out to the Good Guys events or car shows in your area, and you will probably find us there. Thank you.
I'm Charlene Livingstone. I graduated June of '58, and I now live in Newman, which a lot of people don't know where in the world that is, but it's between here and out there, about 60 miles from Livermore. But there's a lot of memories. I was thinking about the rock candy. We used to stop on the way and get some before we went to Frick Junior High School, where I went. I also went to Burkhalter Grammar School, and then on to Castlemont, and totally enjoyed. It's good to see everybody, and thank you for putting this on. It's really great to get together.
I'm Denny Clark, and I should have graduated with you guys, but I flunked the low third, so I graduated in January of 1959. But I've always thought about this, how I would like to do it, so I'm here today, and then I'll go to mine too, which is coming up in March 30th of next year. Thank you.
I'm Diana Curry, post now, and just a sad time. When Castlemont, I wanted to go see Castlemont years later, and I went down the street, and I went, oh God, I know it was right there. I'll go down about another 2 blocks, and God, where is it? And I turned around, and it should be right there. That looks like a big office building. And that's what I seen, and it broke my heart. Because Castlemont was absolutely beautiful, beautiful. So, good old Castlemont. Thank you.
I'm Dave Alexander, June of '58. It's great to be here with all our fellow graduates and others. Like Ron was saying, that the car culture that I grew up with started at Castlemont with all my friends having cars, and we're working on them together. This guy's next to me here, Jim Vanderwall, he provided a driveway for me to overhaul my 41 Ford when I first got it, and he tore it all apart in his driveway and got it lowered in the front end and raised in the back end, and rebuilt the engine, and we had a great time doing that. And my business through life has been in the automotive business, so it all started at Castlemont with the fellowship with Ron and Denny and Jim and many others that that started with the car culture. So it's great to be here, see all you fellow graduates, and hope we can do it another 5 or 10 years. Hope we can all get back together again. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Pat McClure Flowers. I graduated in the January class, so there aren't too many January graduates here. I think maybe 10 or so, if we have that. But I'm so glad to see all of you here and see some of the June graduates that I did know and getting to know now. This luncheon was great, and I thank Rich and Cecilia and all their partners for putting this together. Jeannie and I were talking about our favorite teacher, so I don't want to take away her thunder, but we remember Mrs. Mamer as being wonderful in business. So we learned how to type and take shorthand and prepared us for the working world. And I also remember Pop Snyder, because I was in the choir. And I do remember Larry Darling. I was also in What a Life with Bill Vigil. I was Barbara Pearson. Well, I hate to say opposite Bill, but I guess I was his girlfriend. And so I had some wonderful times at Castlemont. So thank you.
Hi, I'm Jeannie Valderrama-Swampler, and I graduated in the class of January 1958. And as Patty said, my most memorable moment in Castlemont High School was our shorthand teacher, business teacher, Mary Mamer. There'll never be another teacher like her. It's sad. She gave me encouragement and helped me with my career. So I was able to go out, get a good job, well-paying job, and have good skills in shorthand and typing. So thank you all. It's great to see you all. And Mrs. Mamer, thank you.
Hi, I'm Jim Pastroni. My wife Kathleen was in the January 58 class. I had outside activities, so I didn't get involved too much in the Castlemont activities. But a couple of things that happened, and the lady down the way, I had a similar thing with a grade. I had the senior problems, and in the class you were supposed to have a boy and a girl together and go through everything. And there weren't enough girls, so I said I would design a house is what we had to do, and landscape and everything, but I wanted to build a shop. And Mr. Reinhardt said, well, that would be fine. So I went ahead and I put a lot of effort into it, and I got my grade back, and I had a big D+ on the top. And then he had it crossed out, and had a D+, and he said, are you trying to start a business? And so I went, well, I thought that was a little strange. But anyway, when the grades came out, I was up looking at the honor roll in the hallway. They had it posted. And I didn't see him, but he was walking by as I was looking at it, and he made a comment, and he said, well, I guess I couldn't keep you off the honor roll. And so I thought that was a little, but anyway. So the other thing was, Mr. Colt, I had planned on being a machinist or a tool and die maker, and so I took machine shop, and he had gotten a scholarship for me at San Francisco State to become an industrial arts teacher. But at the time, typically in a lot of the industrial classes, they would put the boys that they couldn't put anywhere else, and so there'd be just a few of us in there that wanted to be there. And so I was thinking, I don't think I want to be in this environment all my life, so I chose not to take that. But my outside activities that I was involved in so heavily was outboard hydroplane racing, and I started that when I was 13. Actually, I started a little prior to that. And but in Castlemont, we had class A, B, and C hydroplanes, and had some runabouts. And we raced all over California, from Bakersfield to up to Donner Lake. We had like 24 different races, and they were like in the Monterey Bay, all over the San Francisco Bay, and things like that. And I was involved in the, had been elected vice commodore of the East Bay Boat Club when I was a senior in high school. Anyway, it was it kept me really busy because we were constantly building cars and also cars. I had a 34 Ford pickup with a loaded 48 Merc flathead, with the finned heads and the dual carbs. And but anyway, so I was pretty busy other than being at Castlemont. But one of the things that, thinking back, is the great teachers. We had the choir director, Mr. Snyder. Anyway, he had us sing songs that at the time you don't know any different as a kid, but we had like Psalm of David was 30 minutes, 45 minutes for Far Raised Requiem Mass, and then we had King David, which was an hour and 45 minutes. They were all in Latin and memorized. And if you can get 220 kids to do that, you know, and no complaints or anything, I thought that, you know, thinking back at it, you go, that's just pretty amazing. But, you know, that's the thing I've learned in my life, and my father was that way, is he never said I couldn't do anything. And it was a matter of, you know, just, he'd say, I want you to do something, or I did it on my own without asking. But a friend of mine was, his father had a complete, he raced alky burner hydroplanes, and him and his father both raced them, and he had a full machine shop in his garage, and so we did a lot of engine work there, and so my life's kind of been based around all of those kinds of things and doing things yourself, and I can thank my father because he did everything himself. I remember when he became a superintendent, he took his car in to have the oil changed and everything, and they didn't put the oil back in. And it burned it up. Well, in those days, suing and acting, so he always said, you know, we'll do everything ourselves. And so I think that it was Simon's Brothers or something. They used to, you could take your car down there, put it up on the rack, and do the grease job and everything yourself. And anyway, that's kind of it. I had a lot of friends at Castlemont, and but I was kept pretty busy at home. So that's it.
Hi, I'm Regina Moten Wilkerson, class of June 1958, and I want to just kind of segue onto what my classmate over here mentioned about the recording that Mr. James Snyder, better known as Pop Snyder, had us do. We did that record in 1957. I still have it. And a couple of years ago, I had CDs made of the record. The one side is the Sacred Service, and the other side were excerpts from the student prints, and I think My Fair Lady, and the one that I'm going to wash that man right out of my hair, South Pacific. Yes, that was the other side. I listened to that record to this day. And I want to share with you, I live in Oakley for the past 30 years, which is East Contra Costa County. And one of the Jewish temples had an auction. And I shared that I brought the record to one of the meetings. And they told me that that was the entire Jewish service. So I'd like to give homage to the victims of what has just happened back in Pittsburgh, yes, and say prayers and well wishes to the family and friends of those people. And I want to share with you how important music and the arts are, because we're going to always have these tragic times. But the beautiful music and the arts are what will get us through. So thank you very much.
Speaking of music, I remember spending a lot of my time in Mr. Payson, Joe Payson's music classes, orchestra, band, jazz band. We were in the portable. And I'll never forget, all of a sudden there'll be a big explosion on the wall. And what the heck was that? Almost every time we met, somebody from PE hit a ball up against the wall, and we all jumped in our seats. What was that? But we got used to it because we lived in that portable for 3 years. I don't know if it's because there wasn't another music room or Pop Snyder had dibs on it or what was going on, but I enjoyed, and I became a music teacher myself.
I met my husband Don in class, I think as everybody knows. I'm not Carolyn Clark, by the way, I'm Carolyn Irby. I don't know why, because to me we don't look anything or didn't look anything alike. I enjoyed my time at school. I miss some of the people that are no longer here with us, like my Barbara Ordonez's sister Carol. Carol and I were very good friends. We were neighbors on Burr Street. Okay, and this is my husband, Don.
Hi, I got a story about Elmer's. I had a shop class with Mr. Campbell.
There we go.
And on the floor in his class up at the front were 2 finger holes. And if you misbehave, you put your fingers in the hole. In order to do that, of course, you had to bend over. And you stayed there. And Mr. Campbell had a paddle. And you know where that went. But also Mr. Campbell had another side. He started a dance team that, excuse me, included myself, Jim Gross, Jess Furtado, and Judy Foraker, Linda Rollins, and Pat, I can't remember her name. No, it wasn't Jerry Santa. No, and we had a lady teacher, gym teacher she was, but I do not know her name. And they taught us tango and waltz. And then we performed these dances to to the shrine, to the Masonic lodges, different Masonic lodges. It was a good time. It was a lot of fun, very lot of fun. So not all bad things happen in school, you know, even though there was the finger holes up there on the floor. So maybe he didn't think I was all bad after all. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Normally my wife says they save the best for last, but there's a few other people here, so I can't claim that, okay? I'd like to, but you know, it doesn't work. I don't remember Frick. I don't remember any of the things that half of you people are talking about, because you see, I was one of those kind of kids that were raised in an Italian family, and you had to go to the Cattolica school. Okay? Yeah, capisci? Catholic school, that's it. Okay? So I went to St. Louis Bertram's. From there, I was going to go to O'Dowd, but for some reason, classes were full, so we had to travel all the way down to 34th Avenue and go to St. Louis Bertram's. And I spent my freshman, sophomore year there. And for some unknown reason, I told my parents, you have to let me go to a public school. I want to experience that. Well, I conned my mother, and she finally conned my father, and they finally conned my grandparents because they were footing the bill for my education at the Cattolica school. And anyway, I went to Fremont. And I was good there for about half a year until one day I was not feeling well because I had a music group and we played for a lot of socialite weddings. And this was a Sunday and I got drunk. And know, tell me about it. You know how that happens. Anyway, I was absent from school. They called the house where they thought I lived. And Aunt Honey answers the phone and they ask, about me. And she says, well, no, he doesn't live here. He lives down at 90th Avenue in Oakland. Well, that's out of Fremont District. So right in the middle, that's when you guys saw me. Because I got to Castlemont in midterm, so to speak. And that's when I had the name Finkelman. Now you see, this says also Pie George. My stepfather and mother decided that they should my father should legally adopt my sister and I. So that came the Pie George part. What I remember from Castlemont was Sigma, Phi Mu, because I love the girls, okay? There's just no doubt about that. And throughout all of this, I know you guys are lovely, but looking at the four of you here, so I've got all the eye candy right here, guys. But with that, the same thing as Ron was talking about, a 57 Chevy, and at nights, what did I do instead of studying? Went out, raced, shot pool. Someone mentioned the name Tom Powell. Yes, Tom died quite a few years ago, but he lived right up the street from me. So he and I would go out and shoot pool every night. Got out of Castlemont with a B+ average for shooting pool. That was pretty damn good, without studying. But this was the education that you got in the Catholic school. Okay? I'm just trying to mimic my grandmother. But from there, what did I do? I got involved with a young lady whose parents owned beauty salons and beauty schools from Long Beach to San Francisco. And I met her up on the ranch where I had my horse. Now, mind you, we were not rich, but my parents were in the bar business, and they knew a couple of people up there. One year, my sister and I got horses from them as a Christmas present. So I was always up there cleaning stalls, doing whatever I had to be able to get the food for my horse. And I met this young lady. Long story short, we went together for quite a few years, got married, had 2 children. And during the course of all this stuff, everybody was looking at me because all of a sudden, you're a hairdresser? Whoa, for a male hairdresser, that was a bad news thing, okay? Because that meant, the wrist was limp, okay? But not so. Pete's standing here laughing at me because we've known each other for too many years. Okay? But my life in the hairdressing business has been a wonderful thing. I had, in the 70s, I had a 1-year contract with Playboy magazine. I did all their centerfolds. I've traveled all over the U.S. competing in hairstyling competitions and had a whole storeroom full of trophies. Now I've got a whole garage, 2 garages full of trophies dealing with cars. And when people say, you do what? Build cars, but you're a hairdresser. I say, but it's no different. It's an art form. You take bend hair, you take bend metal. It's just design, whatever the design is, whether it's appealing or unappealing to people. So, what did I leave out about that? I was married for 40 years. My wife passed away. She and I knew each other 40 years prior to that. We were reintroduced by some friends when they said, you need to call this lady. She's sharp like you. She's still young, okay? And I said, okay, so what's her name? They said, Francine. I said, mm-mm. What do you mean? That's an old lady's name. I'm not old. I may be mature, but I'm sure I'm not old, okay? That's an old lady's name. Well, after being needled long enough, we finally got together first night, and we have not been apart since, and that's 14 years. So, excuse me, but I've been blessed twice in my life, and this is saving the best for last. Okay? So, anyway, I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank Rich for a wonderful, wonderful reunion. I at first stated that I wasn't going to come because why? He was just going to go see people that are just dying, and I didn't feel as I'm dying yet. Okay? So, in fact, what was it? There was something on TV the other night, and it was something about the guy said to the lady, well, but that's half dead, and he says, yeah, huh? And so are you, and that's the truth. We're half dead. But mind you, only half, okay? The rest of us are still alive or willing. There you go. Always look at the glass as half full, okay? Never half empty. So I think I've used up my 7 minutes, everybody, okay? Right, okay. Thank you again for your time and attention. God bless everybody.
Jim,
I'm Cecilia Angel. And I just lost my voice, which is good. But I want to mention that Mrs. Jerry Laws, who taught Jim, she was someone I loved dearly. I was a member of Girls Athletic Association, and I was commissioner for a few years too. And I did get my block. I had 3 block letters, and women were allowed to have them. And all you had to do was go to GAA, which I did. But I got to wear white shorts. All of you else wore blue bloomers.
And you took the elastic out.
Yeah, you had a bad, yeah. They were, when I say bloomers, they were bloomers. But then, because I had a letter, I was allowed to wear white shorts. And I just want to say to all of you, I'm so glad that all of you are able to come this afternoon. Richard has worked really hard, along with the other committee members. They're scattered all over the room. And even Jan here came from Montana.
Yes.
And I thought she'd come in her boots, but she didn't today. And Judy Lane Judy Lane is over there. And she wore her boots. I was going to say she probably wore her boots. But thank you all for everything, for coming here. Castlemont High School was perhaps one of the fun things that I had. Mrs. Laws taught me in sports that you have to give of yourself and everyone will give back to you. And the one thing I found that in East Oakland, there's Sobrani Park and Brookfield Village. Everybody knows those 2 subdivisions. They were the first ones. My father found, there's 2 streets. My father found one called Hale Avenue. H-A-L-E, and it's right off of the Eads. So he bought about an acre of property there, and he was a contractor also besides being a chef, and he built the home that I lived in. Mrs. Law said, always be kind, always be good, and love the people that are with you. I went into the Navy, and I think Jim Vigilon went in the same time I did. But I went into the Navy, and I got stationed here at Oak Knoll Hospital. And I cried for a month, because Daddy said I'd be able to see the world. And I couldn't, because I was 18. So the law then was, as a woman, you had to be 21 to leave the United States. That was the law. I couldn't even vote, but I was in the service. And the military, I used everything Mrs. Laws taught me. They needed a 6-man football team. I made pom-poms, went out there, and it was just for the military hospitals, and it went all over the United States, 6-man football. And I made pom-poms, and I got 2 of the girls to go with me, and so I started the first pom-pom cheerleading. Thank you, Mrs. Laws. And then the one thing I did for Castlemont that I will never forget, as long as I went to Castlemont High School and got permission from the principal and the teachers, I can go there during the week and recruit. It's against the law to recruit now, but I would dress myself to the hilt, go to a classroom. They'd arrange for some women from Castlemont to be there, and I would tell them all the advantages they would have. And again, thank you, Mrs. Laws. She said, be the leader and just look at each one right in their eyes and speak to them. And that's what I did. And I have just finished spoken. I'm now going to hand the phone over to my dear friend, Jan Thurston here. But before I do that, I want, Thurston was her name in school. I want to make a comment about Dieter Foos, who's not here this afternoon. But Dieter Foos lives in Nevada now. And we all recall Dieter Foos. And wonderful. And Wolfgang, his brother. All good friends. And I'd also like to mention, geez, I forgot his name. Is that a sign? Oh, that's a sign. There's someone from Utah. Oh, Rex Montgomery. Rex is not here. He is a physicist in Utah. He has a cancer clinic for breast cancer. And he has done very well because there's only 4 machines like this in the world. And he has one of them that he worked with. And the reason you didn't see him or might not have known him in high school is because while he was running and taking those classes that we had to take, he was attending junior college. And he graduated, but he was finishing up so he can go into college. And I'm going to hand the phone over to Jan.
I wasn't a very good student. Oh, I'm Jan Thurston Schwartz. I wasn't a very good student, but I was very good at socializing. And I think I belonged to more clubs and more after-school activities, etc.
And you liked all the boys that had really neat cars because they give us a ride home.
Well, I don't know about that, but I always did like really nice, fast cars, and that came from my father and my brother influence, I'm sure. When I graduated, or after I graduated, I started San Jose State, and I was an exploratory major because I didn't know what I wanted to do. And one summer, I met a girl working at the Kaiser Center at the White House. Do you remember that at Lake Merritt?
Yes.
I don't think it's there anymore. All she did every day was talk about Montana, and I went home and I told my dad, I said, I'm sorry, but I'm leaving. He said, I'm not paying any out-of-state tuition for you. There's good schools in California. I said, I'll figure out a way. So that next fall, I ended up going to school in Missoula, Montana. And not long after, I met the man that I've been married to for 55 years. He wasn't in school at the time, but he ended up going to school for 10 years, so we had fun putting him through school. And he ended up teaching, and we have 2 sons, 5 grandchildren, and I love Montana, but it's always nice to be back in California. And I have some very dear friends that each summer we've been getting together, and that's been fun too. This summer, Pat and Roberta and another gal came up, and we went into Glacier Park and Yellowstone Park, and just had a wonderful time. But I'm happy to be a part of this group, and thank you all for being here.
I'm Roberta Brain Snyder. Closer, yes. And I have to tell a story about Pat Gilson Schuckert here. We were not rascals too much at Castlemont, but we knew we were going to leave Castlemont and we would probably go off to college. So when a boy named Eric, he was in the next class, and he was tall, but I can't think of his last name, decided that we needed a weekday field trip to San Francisco State. Pat, and if you could have been any other people, because I don't know who else, but Pat I remember, because we had, of course, to write an excuse. And my mother wasn't happy that we cut school, but Pat knew her dad, a principal in an elementary school, and her mother, a supervisor in Oakland School, would be furious. So she wrote her own note. Now, Pat is known for terrible handwriting. It's better now. So, poor Pat had to be suspended, which was a little embarrassing when her...
It was the detention.
Oh, okay.
Detention. She had detention.
But it was a wild, on our part, to cut school.
And another memory I have is Oakville Hospital is mentioned. Well, Jan's mother got us into tennis lessons in San Leandro, and then we had to find a tennis court around. Well, the hospital had one, so we climbed the fence and played tennis at the Oakville Hospital, which no one ever kicked us off. We would, no. Anyway.
You had to climb the fence, or else you had to walk in the very beginning, the entrance, and then they'd question you because you didn't have the right.
You couldn't go in there.
Yeah, so we're in the military.
Those were a couple of rascal things we did. Now, my husband is Jerry Snyder, who was student body president at Castlemont, probably 56 is when he graduated. So, anyway, it's a lot of old memories. And thank you, committee, and Rich, for a nice afternoon.
Oh, okay. I'm Pat Gilson-Schuckert, and it's my friend Roberta here. We've known each other a long time. And Jan, who I went to elementary school, and Kay, who I went to elementary school. And so those of you that went to Burkhalter and Toller Heights, look over there on the purple paper board and you'll find your elementary school pictures. You may or may not recognize yourself, but I don't know who half those people were because I've forgotten. You know, I can't tell from now to then. Oh, and yes, I had 12 weeks of detention for cutting school and going to San Francisco State. The problem was that my parents folk danced with Dr. Baker and his wife, so my parents were extremely embarrassed. But that's okay, I still graduated. And thinking of Dieter Fuss and Wolfgang Fuss and Rich talking about how many orchestras there were at Frick, I remember I was in, I think, that early morning orchestra, and at that time I was, you know, I can't tell you I liked the violin, but at that time I was playing first violin until the Fuss boys showed up at Frick, and then I was demoted instantaneously. They were so much better. So that's sort of, there's a lot of Frick stuff over there too. I remember a lot of you from Frick. But I can't think of any. I mean, there were a lot of things that were embarrassing. Oh, and Mrs. Laws. I am so with you with Mrs. Laws. She was the leadership teacher and the gym teacher. And since my mother was a PE teacher, they were good friends. So she was a really nice lady. That's it. But, well, hang on, because Regina wants to say one more thing.
I just, Regina, class of 58, I forgot to say when I was talking that I wanted to thank Rich and the committee for actually saving Castlemont as a public school because it was well on the way to becoming an alternative school. And so I don't think a lot of people realize this. And so I say thank you. And, anybody that has not become a lifetime member of the Alumni Association, please do so. I became a lifetime member in '09. I've been to class.
Jim Vigilon. Cecilia, we joined the Navy, went to Oakno. I got you beat. I got stationed at Oakland Airport. We guarded the estuary. A couple of things. Don, you mentioned Mr. Campbell? Yes. His granddaughter is sitting right here. Sandy, stand up. Her grandfather had the fastest paddle in the Oakland Public Schools.
Thank you, Jim. I was going to introduce him to her.
You mentioned the Alumni Association. Last year, my brother and I were honored to be Distinguished Knights for our public service. And if you got a chance, join the Alumni Association. Greg is really involved in it. And we also have Nights of Old here next month. Any years, you're invited to come and have lunch with us. And we also have a group that meets third Thursday of the month, Athens Restaurant in Dublin. And it's all years. Come and have lunch with us. Thank you.
The schedule is for us to sing Hail, Hail, Castlemont, and our community sharing of stories. At 3 o'clock, this officially ends. At 3:30, we are supposed to have vacated the premises. We have a half an hour to get stuff out. If you got something. If you haven't gotten this video thing to me on this clipboard, please be sure I get it. It'll make it a lot easier to be sure I get the stuff to the right people, correct? Okay? And tomorrow, we were desiring anybody that wants to do it to drive through, if you will, our old neighborhoods. I'd like to meet at the restaurant Paradiso. It's in San Leandro. I think that's Bancroft. Is that correct? Dutton and Bancroft, roughly? In any case, the Paradiso restaurant, 10 o'clock. We will be back at the restaurant at roughly 11:30. And plan on lunch at the restaurant, Paradiso. So if you don't want to go for the drive through the neighborhoods, and you want to kind of get together with people again like this, 11:30 Paradiso, okay? Hail, hail, Castlemont. Ready? Hail, hail.